On Thursday, we had some major news out of Fulton County, Georgia. The special grand jury that was convened as part of District Attorney Fani Willis's investigation into Trump and his allies' efforts to overturn the 2020 election finally released its final report. In the small amount of that report that wasn't redacted, we found out two things. First, that the panel found by a unanimous vote that no widespread fraud took place, and second, that one or more witnesses committed perjury by lying, and as a result, the panel has called for indictments against those people. Now, both of those are objectively bad news for Donald Trump, who relied on his own claims of fraud as a predicate for demanding that Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger find 11,780 votes that didn't exist. Still, that didn't stop Trump from bizarrely claiming a win anyway, posting on Truth Social, quote, "Thank you to the special grand jury in the great state of Georgia for your patriotism and courage. Total exoneration. The USA is very proud of you." So, first of all, nowhere in the report did it say that Trump was exonerated. Literally nowhere. This isn't even up for debate. Here is the excerpt from the report. Quote, "We set forth for the court our recommendations on indictments and relevant statutes, including the votes by the grand jurors. This includes the votes respective to each topic, indicated in yea, nay, abstain format throughout. The total number of grand jurors who placed votes on each topic has been indicated in each section. Footnotes have been added in certain places where jurors requested the opportunity to clarify their vote for any reason. Each applicable statute is referenced by citation number. Attached to this document as appendix is complete set of Georgia statutes referenced below." And that's it. Everything else after that is redacted. This is literally a report showing that the full unredacted report includes recommendations for indictments and how they'll be formatted, but they haven't been released. And yet somehow Trump looked at that and took total exoneration? I'm sorry, but what fucking planet is this dude living on? And the reason here is obvious. Trump knows that his supporters aren't going to fish out the report, and so they'll just take his word for it. And so all he has to do is come out and say, "Hey, look, the report says I'm totally exonerated," and everyone's going to believe him. And because the right operates in its own hermetically sealed media ecosystem, you better believe that there won't be a single conservative media personality who's willing to debunk him. And of course, Trump knows that, and because he takes his own supporters for fools, he's clearly more than happy to lie right to their faces. Consider too, this is Trump's playbook. He has quite literally done this before. When the Mueller report was released, Trump came out and said this.
So after a long look, after a long investigation, after so many people have been so badly hurt, after not looking at the other side, where a lot of bad things happened, a lot of horrible things happened, a lot of very bad things happened for our country. It was just announced there was no collusion with Russia, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There was no collusion with Russia. There was no obstruction, and none whatsoever. And it was a complete and total exoneration. It's a shame that our country had to go through this. To be honest, it's a shame that your president has had to go through this before I even got elected. It began. And it began illegally. And hopefully somebody's going to look at the other side. This was an illegal takedown that failed. And hopefully somebody's going to be looking at the other side. So it's complete exoneration, no collusion, no obstruction. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And yet, surprise, surprise, that isn't at all what the Mueller report said. In reality, the Mueller report said, quote, "While this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him." It literally said that the report did not exonerate him, which by the time it passed through the dilapidated meat processor that is Trump's cognitive system, Trump decided that it meant complete and total exoneration. It's like this broken computer where no matter what you feed into it, the output is always the same. I'm innocent. And now, the exact same thing is happening once again, wherein Trump has read words, decided that those words meant something completely different from what those words actually mean, and that now he's somehow exonerated. I mean, seriously, the report literally details how the indictments will be spelled out on the following pages, which are of course redacted, and Trump looked at that and is like, there you have it. if the shamelessness doesn't knock you on the floor, his contempt for his own supporters will. Now in reality, that full report won't be released until at least we find out from DA Willis who will be indicted. We do know, thanks to her statements, that an indictment is, quote, imminent, meaning we can expect to hopefully have some news on this in days or weeks, although that's not completely clear. But at the very least, we can glean that imminent should at least signal sooner rather than later. And finally, on this topic of what DA Willis is going to do, while we won't have confirmation one way or the other until we hear from her, we could at least read the tea leaves here, and they don't exactly bode well for Donald Trump. Even on the issue of why the entire report wasn't released, that too signals bad news for Trump. Here's former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner, my co-host for a YouTube-only legal series called The Legal Breakdown, explaining that point in particular.
So why unseal the three sections? I think because Judge McBurney was trying to balance the public's interest through the media. A number of media organizations brought suit to, have Judge McBurney order the release of the report in its entirety to the public. And he says, look, there is really a searing public interest in what the grand jury has concluded regarding Donald Trump and any of his criminal associates that they might recommend should be indicted for violating Georgia state law. But he said he also had to balance that against, and here's an important buzz phrase we heard from Judge McBurney in his ruling, he has to balance it against the due process rights of individuals in the future. Now, let me just break that down into layman's speak. Who is it in the context of a criminal case that has the most due process rights? That would be the defendant. So when Judge McBurney said, listen, I'm going to release the introduction, the conclusion, and the section on lying witnesses, which we can talk about in a minute, those are the only three sections I'm inclined to release right now because we still need to protect the due process rights of, inferentially, the defendants who are about to be indicted. Again, that's another, I think, important data point that Judge McBurney used that buzz phrase, due process rights. So everything in the 8-page ruling that we just read from Judge McBurney militates in favor of a conclusion that indictments are coming.
And finally, let's be clear about one more thing here. Trump is not doing any of this from a position of strength. You don't go onto your little social media site and outright lie about what a mostly redacted report says if you're in a good position. Trump having to desperately distort reality is a testament to his weakness, a testament to the fact that he is backed into a corner and needs to try and rewrite history as quickly and shamelessly as possible. And while he may hope that winning over public opinion may help him, it won't. It'll serve to obfuscate the truth for his supporters and his apologists in the media, but at the end of the day, that's going to have no bearing on whether or not he's indicted. So he can try to manipulate the people who trust him, and rest assured, he will, but his lies aren't going to stop these indictments from coming down. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can click the thumbnail right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work even further, the best way is to subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. There you can check out my interviews with major players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, and so many more. Plus other interviews that live exclusively on the podcast. That link is also right here on this screen, or just search No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.